Hey everyone, it's Jay Wolf here again. Today's going to be my final segment, which is going to be part 4 on how to build your own desktop PC. And here we're kind of going to get into the software side of things. We're going to install Windows 7 and the drivers for all the hardware we actually have in this system. And I meant to do this in 2, possibly 3 parts, but since my second video was so long, I had to push it to actually 4 parts, so sorry about that. But what we're going to do first is we're actually going to install Windows 7, and then I'm going to show you a few different techniques you can do to go in and actually install the drivers. So let's jump in, get Windows 7 in here, and start getting that install process going. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do here is actually load in Windows 7. I chose Windows 7 Home 64-bit. I really don't see a difference. I've had Home, Premium, Professional, I've had them all. I honestly really don't see a difference, so we're going to go ahead and load this up. So one of the first things you want to do is once you after install the CD and restart the computers, you want to hit the delete key, which will get you into the BIOS here. And what we want to do is, see if we can zoom that around. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit so you can better see this. What we're going to do here is go down to the Advanced BIOS screen, hit enter, and hard drive boot priority, hit enter there. And what we're going to do is, remember how we installed 2 drives, we're actually going to remove our other drive from the hot swap bay. That way there's no chance of it trying to install the operating system onto that. So for boot priority, we're going to do the Samsung, which is our SSD, which is what we want. And we'll save that. And it's going to go back in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit delete again to go back in. I'm not familiar enough with Gigabyte to really. Asus really has a better BIOS to go into, so we're going to go back into Advanced. First is going to be from the hard disk, and then the second is going to be from the CD-ROM, which is what we want. So we'll just exit out of that, exit again. Save and exit setup. Yes. And now hopefully it will try to boot from the hard drive, and then it will see that it won't be able to do that, so it'll actually go in and boot from our actual DVD of Windows. This is going to go in, and you can see it right there. We're actually going to start loading Windows 7 files. With this being an SSD, it shouldn't take a lengthy amount of time. It should be a pretty quick process. So you're just going to wait for this to load, and then I'm going to show you how to format your SSD. Okay, here we go. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select our language and our keyboard input, hit next, and then just click on the Install Now feature. And you're just going to scroll down, General Windows License, just hit the accept right there. Hit next, and there's an upgrade or a custom, and what we want to do, since it's our first install on this hard drive, we're going to do a custom. And we're going to go to driver option, format. Now that we've done that, we've created a partition, so we'll click next. And what it's doing right now is it's actually copying Windows for us. This is where we're going to take a break, because this actually takes a little bit of time here. Now while we're waiting for Windows to install, one thing I wanted to take a look at was actually when you first boot up your system, one thing you might want to look for is to make sure everything's running properly. And as you can see here, we got both fans here running on the CPU cooler. And then if we take a look here at the top, both these fans are running. And let's see if we can get a shot of the bottom of the graphics card. Fans are running properly there, which is a plus. Fan on the front's running correctly. So that's one thing to take a look at as Windows is installing. Just look at all your components, make sure everything's properly aligned and running correctly. Windows 7 is officially installed. So what we're going to do here, I'll just put in I'll just put in a general username right now, just for the purpose of this. And now I'm going to enter the product key. I'm just going to use the recommended settings for updating Windows. You're going to set your zip code here, or your time zone actually, sorry. And that's it. It's going to finalize everything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the drivers, and what I've done is I've actually put the drivers on a USB drive, which I've installed into the computer here. And the first thing we want to install is the two Intel chipsets. We're going to extract those, yes to all. Put up here and go ahead and install the Intel chipset. This will run us through a few displays here, and then the system will actually restart. Just click next here. Just click next, and then it's going to have you restart. Yes, you want to restart the computer. Back again. Back to our drivers and install the second driver. Extract. Go ahead and install this second driver. As you can see, that one actually didn't have you restart your computer. So the next one we're going to look for is the network, which is going to be this LAN. There's actually two of them. But we'll install this one first. And we have another one to install here. Okay, this should actually be the one that's going to install our Ethernet card or port, which is on the back of our motherboard. And as you can see down here, it's searching for the internet, which it has found. And it's going to do is our USB. And as you can see down here, right here is USB 3.0. Go ahead and extract that. As you can see down here, it's installing the USB 3.0. That should begin to work now. And now we're looking for our video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and extract the rest of the drives for our system. And once I get done with this, I'll actually come back and we'll actually install the GPU, which is the AMD driver. The last driver we're going to be responsible for installing is going to be our Catalyst Control Center for our AMD GPU. And we're just going to click on that like previously before. And you're just going to follow the procedures that it has you go through. Alright, so after it installs this and reboots, we should get our resolution back to the normal standard. This is actually 1920 by 1200, but normally it would be 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080. Start, and we're going to click yes. So as you can see here, we've successfully installed all of our drivers. We have the normal resolution here, and the normal settings that you normally see after doing a complete install of Windows and then getting all the correct drivers installed. Everything seems to be running ideal, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a few benchmarks on this. Probably run Cinebench just on the CPU and the GPU to kind of get a better sense of make sure everything's cooling properly, make sure everything's functioning at what it should be. So let's jump in and do that. Well, one quick thing I want to do here before we do Heaven benchmark, it's going to test our GPU and it's also going to push our CPU to make sure everything's cooling properly, is we want to make sure that the other hard drive's installed. So this is the hot swap base. I'm just going to push it in right there. And it should begin to read it. As you can see down here, it's already installed, ready to use. And it's not going to show up there. We're actually going to have to do a reboot. So we're going to have to do a restart, and then once we do that restart, it should actually show up each time. But I didn't want to actually install it till after we got the operating system installed, in case sometimes it'll actually install on your non-SSD drive. Your operating system will. It's just easier that way, just to leave it unplugged. The search button down here and just put computer management, and it'll pop up. And go to storage and then click on disk management. Okay, so it's basically just going to follow the steps that Windows has installed. And you can assign it to what letter drive you actually want, and I'm actually going to assign it to E. And that's right, NTFS is what we want there. And we're just going to put Seagate. Seagate 500, since it's a 500 gigabyte drive. And that's it. It's officially installed. As you can see, it's going to pop up down here. And if we go into computer, we have our 2 drives installed right there. Mark here. And I'm actually going to use CPU-AMD, which is just a free software to monitor our temperatures here. And we're going to run Heaven, and we're going to put we're going to put everything at extreme. Anti-aliasing at 4x. Tessellation at extreme. Everything's going to be set at the high, and it's going to run at our system resolution, which is 1920 by 1200. And we're actually just gonna let this run and see what kind of temperatures we get at the end. Make sure everything's performing correctly before we shut the system up and conclude our how to build a PC guide. We're getting into the end, the final conclusion of our benchmark here, and everything seems to be performing correctly. All the fans are pushing at their max, which is usually what happens when you run Heaven, which is a really high intensive GPU, and mainly GPU, but it also puts some strain on your CPU. So we're gonna see, we got our scores there. Seems everything's performing correctly, and let's just exit out of this and see what kind of temperatures we got. That's mainly what I'm concerned about, is temperatures here. Make sure everything's running coolly. As you can tell, things are running extremely cool. Our max for our AMD 7950 was 72, which is really cool. My GTX 680 actually gets up to 80 fairly easily. It has a higher clock speed, but it does reach that temperature mark. And for our CPU, you can see our highest readings were not above, they were below 50. They were in the mid 40s, which is excellent for the system we got here. So as you can see, everything's performing correctly. The volume's running as desired, and everything seems to be performing as a normal system would be. Alright everyone, thanks for sticking with me. This concludes my guide on how to build your own desktop PC. In this 4th installment, we actually installed the Windows operating system and all the drivers. And we did a few tests to make sure everything was running correctly, and it was a successful build, which is good. Thanks for sticking around for everything. Sorry that some of especially the part 2 was a little lengthy. If you have any questions, comments, anything you'd like to see or not see in my future videos, just let me know. Just send some comments there at the bottom, and we'll go from there. But as you can see, we got everything displayed here. We got our tower, all our components. And that's it. That concludes my guide on how to build your own desktop PC.